Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Restaurant Brand International, the New York-listed parent of Burger King, has agreed to sell a majority stake in the Chinese subsidiary of the U.S. fast food chain to Chinese private equity firm CPE for $350 million in a bid to grow the brand in the country.
The narcotics trade in Southwest Asia is expanding as opium cultivation spreads from Afghanistan to neighboring countries, while large-scale trafficking of opiates and methamphetamine in the region continues.
India will provide education on artificial intelligence to children as young as 8 years old, broadening the target age group from the current 11 to 17 years. The change is part of an effort to teach AI as a basic universal skill. Experts, however, have raised doubts over teacher training and a lack of hardware.
Japanese telecommunications company KDDI is looking to make its customer loyalty points convertible to stablecoins as early as this year, following the planned acquisition of a roughly 20% stake in blockchain tech company Hashport.
A buying spree for new drugs developed by Chinese companies has sent Hong Kong-listed biotech shares nearly doubling in value this year, while a dozen biotech businesses have raised billions of dollars in the city under a special listing rule.
Czech automaker Škoda is expected to expand its factory in Vietnam so it can start making electric vehicles, the Vietnamese government said, adding an EV rival to VinFast. Now moving on to the next segment.
Rising wedding and home costs discourage South Korean marriages. South Korean couples who wish to get married face soaring costs both for the wedding itself and obtaining their new home, leading some people to shun the financial burdens of marriage and pushing municipalities to help reduce the expense of a ceremony. Getting married in South Korea costs an average of over 361 million won, or $250,000, according to a survey of 1,000 people married for less than 2 years conducted by local matchmaking company Duo in February. This average includes 304 million won for a new home for the newlyweds, a figure that has climbed by 60 million won from the previous year amid skyrocketing property prices. In South Korea, even renters typically are expected to pay a large lump sum deposit, which makes initial move-in costs high. Costs for a wedding also continue to balloon. Local governments, fearing a deepening dearth of marriages, are working to open public facilities for use as venues and encourage less expensive ceremonies. A 2024 survey of 2,000 men and women by an organization affiliated with South Korea's Health and Welfare Ministry indicated that 42% of 500 unmarried men had no intention of getting married or were undecided. The most common reason given, at 25% of respondents, was the high financial burden of married life.
ASEAN e-commerce to grow 16% in 2025, driven by AI and video. Southeast Asia's e-commerce market is set to grow 16% this year, despite economic headwinds, with video-based promotions and AI-powered recommendation features fueling consumer activity, a survey showed. According to the annual E-Economy C report compiled by Google, Singapore state investor Temasek Holdings, and U.S. consultancy Bain, the e-commerce segment's gross merchandise value, or GMV, this year is expected to reach $181 billion across 6 key markets: Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. This is up 16% from $156 billion in 2024 and is faster than last year's 13% rise. Including other major digital consumer services, such as ride-hailing, food delivery, and online travel agents, the region's digital economy is expected to post a 15% increase this year to $299 billion, maintaining last year's growth rate, the report showed. A key driver behind the e-commerce growth is video commerce. The feature is rapidly gaining traction and is expected to capture 25% of all e-commerce GMV in 2025. Platforms such as TikTok have entered the online shopping space, enabling users to showcase and sell products through live streaming.
And now for news highlights. In this episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article or articles that have particularly captured our attention.
And today we like to focus on tourism in Southeast Asia, particularly, let's start out with maybe Indonesia?
Yeah, let's go to Indonesia, or let's try to go to Indonesia, because that's the problem. People aren't going to Indonesia.
Yes.
Or not as many as Indonesia would like.
Yeah, they're saying that the article actually compares it to Malaysia, which is doing very well for itself in terms of tourists number, but Indonesia is not being able to reach its goal, and the main reason being? What is the main reasons? There's just several main reasons as far as I can tell. Yeah, the article points out
part of the problem, I think.
A few of the problems. One is infrastructure, obviously.
Yes.
Because Indonesia is it's made up of a lot of islands.
A lot of islands. That's one of the things we love to point out. The nation of 17,000 islands, and there's several thousand that are inhabited. People often forget how huge Indonesia is. It's the size of the continental United States in width. And so it's not necessarily easy to get from one place to another, especially when it's a bunch of islands and an ocean in between.
Yeah.
And there's a little anecdote in here about how there's a ferry boat going to one location that has 4,000 people on it at a time and very few facilities. And they said if we could get a better transport network going on with our ferry system, we could get a lot more tourists into this area, but they don't do it.
Bali is obviously a very popular tourist spot. The article points out that it actually accounts for 40% of all foreign visitors to Indonesia, to that tiny island. And obviously the Indonesian government is trying to get more tourists to go to other hotspots.
Yeah, because the problem with Bali is kind of the opposite of what the rest of Indonesia has, is that there's too much tourism. And the infrastructure, people are complaining that it's just full of nothing but tourists and that the roads are too crowded. And the magic is lost or is being lost. So they're trying to open up other areas. Like, for instance, there's an island next to Bali, Lombok, which is growing in popularity, which is also just a skip away from the island where the Komodo dragons live. So they're trying to boost that as well. It's things like that. But once again, you go back to the infrastructure. It's also, how do we deal with getting people on planes and on boats? And one of the solutions is cruise ships.
The article points out that Malaysia sort of utilizes that very well, and
Indonesia does not.
Which it should, because of all the spots that they could, stop on.
And there is that risk that you could create another Bali that gets overblown with ships that roll in with 4,000 or 5,000 people at a time, and then they leave before sunset, and the rest of the people that live there are wondering what's happening. But some places might actually need that. Interesting stat, going back to the Malaysia-Indonesia thing. Before COVID, 2019, the last year before tourism numbers took a dive around the world, that Indonesia had 16 million visitors. And Malaysia had 26 million visitors. Malaysia, population-wise, is much smaller than Indonesia.
Yeah.
But in 2025 so far, for the first 8 months of 2025, the number for Indonesia is only 10 million. So it's basically on pace to equal what it had in 2019. Meanwhile, Malaysia is already at 28 million, which is more than it had in 2019. So Indonesia is not just, it's falling behind in a way.
Indonesia's falling behind. And another reason might be visa fee entry
That was the
right?
other thing when
Yeah.
you were mentioning earlier about the problems it's having. It's visa-free entry. And Malaysia's
Malaysia's-
embracing that.
Yes, they opened it up for China and India, so that's been a very good boost for the country. But yeah, Indonesia, I there was this one quote in the story that I thought summarized it pretty well, but one person of a nonprofit tourist organization in Indonesia, he said, the main focus of the tourism sector is safety, comfort, and service. Currently, these three basic things in Indonesia have diminished, including in Bali. So that, I mean, but it's going to take a lot of money to also build these infrastructures, and the Indonesian government has a lot to think about and how to budget everything, I guess.
I even had that thought because I've never been to Indonesia. I've never even been to Bali. I thought I'd like to see that. There is a famous Hindu temple called Borobudur, which is people who know their history of monumental buildings. It's in Java, and near that is the famous photos of the mountains with the craters, the volcanoes, and whatnot. I'd love to see that, but I don't even know how to get started going there. And maybe that's something Indonesia could work on.
True, yeah, direct flights and all that.
But the other story, which came out just a couple days before this one, is about Vietnam and how they're doing really well with tourism.
And it mainly thanks to a lot of Chinese tourists.
Yes, it's a bit of a contrast showing what Vietnam seems to be doing right, and maybe that Indonesia could take some lessons from. But one of the lessons is that Vietnam, compared to a lot of its regional peers, is relatively stable. And there's been protests in Indonesia, but Vietnam has been holding steady as a place where people can go visit, and they've been doing build up with tourism campaigns and whatnot, making it easier for people to get there.
Yeah, and actually Vietnam has also utilized visa-free travels for it's opened it up for a number of countries, so that's helped as well. And it seems like a lot of cost-conscious Chinese travelers are also choosing Vietnam because it's closer to China and easier to afford and shop there, which is actually boosting Vietnam's retail growth. A lot of Chinese tourists are shopping there, so it's been a good season for Vietnamese retailers.
And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.